Let's move on now to resumes, which is one of the key tools, as you mentioned. What is a resume?
A resume actually is a business document because it's used in business, and it highlights and puts forward certain skills, values, accomplishments, qualities that you have, and it highlights where you've been spending your time. That's basically what a resume is.
So like a mini biography.
It is, and it has so much fear involved with putting together a resume, but that's basically what it is.
I would imagine because it's so hard to encapsulate one's life, one's professional life, into 1 and 2 pages.
It is.
So.
It's very hard.
But there's an art to finding just the right things to put in there and to make your 2-page biography, if you will, to be the best it can be.
Exactly.
How are resumes used?
Resumes are used basically to screen you in or screen you out. So an employer who's reading it is going to make a cursory decision based on what you put on that resume as to whether they'd like to talk to you further in an interview. So your goal as a resume writer is to try to identify the right language and be able to talk about yourself in a way that it's going to entice the employer.
Okay.
And they're going to say, I can see this person possibly will be able to solve my problems or fill my needs based on examples of their past history, and I want to talk to them more.
Should the prospective employee look at the job description as a way of trying to find language to match their resume with the need of the employer? Is that a technique?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But it goes beyond just a job description.
Okay.
We've probably all read job descriptions, and after we're done reading them, we think, how boring, or I still don't have any idea what this job is about.
Okay.
Sounds too legalese usually.
Right.
So that's one of the tools, is to look at the job description. Another tool is to use your informational interviewing, you know, what you found out from that.
Right.
Another tool is to just do web searching. You know, there's so much information out there on the web now about companies, about industries. Learn about products of the companies you're going for. Learn about who their competitors are, their customers. What's this industry like? What's this company like? What's this job title like? Learn as much as you can, because I guarantee you it will come in handy.
Okay. What are the different styles of resumes that one can use?
That's one of the most popular questions I get, because I think we all just want to know what the right one is, and then let's just do it and get over with. And I hate to tell you, but there is no right format. That's why I'm employed, right? It depends, exactly. There's no right format, but there's the right format for you, for what story you're trying to tell with your particular experience to this particular employer at this particular time.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting how I stretch that definition
It sounds like
out?
there's a continuum.
Absolutely. You know what I'm talking about. Continuum,
Yeah,
absolutely.
can you describe the different types, the different ranges of styles of resumes?
With the continuum of resumes, I'm going to explain one end and then the other end. So the first end is the chronological. And that tends to be what we think of when we think of resumes. If we were ever taught anything at all, that's what we picture. It's very date-driven. And it's more recognized. It's probably a little easier for people to put together.
So is that typically where the most recent employer is listed, and the next recent employer, or the most recent degree or education, and then you sequence it that way?
Exactly. You basically are going to be going back in time with your resume. And so, as I said, it's easier to put together, and it's great about if you want to highlight that you were staying in the same industry for years, or you stayed in the same job at the same company for years. So you do have the employers, you do have the job titles, and you do have the dates. They're just in a different format. They tell a different story. So it's a little more challenging. Some people are not used to the functional format, and it can be a little daunting at first. But let me tell you, I've seen with clients that once they start to put those together, it's as if they've had an awakening, because they've never seen themselves in this new way before. Because we all get so tied to our titles and where we worked, and we don't think of ourselves as actually being a suitcase full of experiences and skills that you decide what you want to put out on the table. You don't just plop the thing on the table and that's it.
I can imagine it's a very validating process. So if you have some nervousness or apprehension about job interviews or job searches, maybe this can help with any self-esteem issues that you may be experiencing.
Definitely. It's definitely an empowering process. And it also makes the job hopping, industry hopping, those kind of things, or times of unemployment, not stand out as much, as glaringly as on a chronological, because you're changing the focus from where was I at this time to here's the suitcase of stuff that I can bring you. So your job in resumes is to identify the language and the terms that are used in the industry, and look at yourself as a product, basically, on the shelf of the world of work. And the employer is the customer. And it just says, not to reduce anybody to laundry detergent, but it's a good way of looking at this. If you go down a laundry detergent aisle at the store, they all basically do the same thing. That's your competition. You're all basically doing the same thing and have the same background, which is why you're going for this type of job. However, what is it that makes you, the laundry detergent, jump off the shelf into that person's cart? You know, it's certain qualities, certain ways of appearing. So that's what we're talking about. And so the more that you can learn how to market yourself by speaking the lingo, and most importantly, if this person's a customer has either needs that they need to have filled, or they have problems they need to be solved, and that's why they're hiring somebody.
So the resume really is like it's a way of selling yourself, marketing yourself.
Exactly.
So it's the way of packaging yourself in the best possible way, so they'll pick you rather than somebody else.
Exactly. And so the more that you can speak to that particular customer or reader or employer, saying, I know what your issues are based on the job description and so on, and I know the problems that can solve for you, and let me show you how I've done that for other people. That's the resume. I want to prove to you how I've done it. So you do it through quantifying, using money and time and numbers of people. You do it through qualifying, using adjectives and adverbs. You do it through using accomplishment statements. Accomplishment statements are where you try to explain in a very short, precise amount of time what it is, what the challenge is, or the problem you're facing, what the action that you took was, and the result of it. So I have some mnemonics that I tell people. I don't know which one would fit for each person, but CAR, which is challenge, action, result, PAR, which is problem, action, result, and STAR, which is situation, task, action, and result. Whatever one works for you, the more accomplishments you can put on your resume, the more I'm going to see as an employer. You've done it in the past, you could do it for me in the future.
CAR, PAR, STAR.
Yes.
Okay, I want to retain, I'll say that over. CAR, PAR, STAR. What are some, language is very important in the resume and the kinds of words that you use, and you hinted at this talking about action words and accomplishments and things like that. Are there any types of words or phrases that you can think of might be examples of ways to word your resume, or things that help stand out so it's not flat, it's more engaging and it connects more to the employer?
Right. It doesn't sound like you lifted it from the job description,
Exactly.
Xeroxed it and handed it to them.
Right.
Well, I think accomplishment statements really do that. And let me give you an example. On your job description, you might say, you might see answering phones, and you've answered phones, so you put answering phones in your resume. Okay, that's great. It's kind of flat. But what if you put instead an accomplishment statement around answering phones, like answer 40-line phone for 400 consultants, yielding 40,000 calls a year.
That sounds a lot more powerful.
Exactly, because what it's telling you is not just that you know how to pick up a phone and say hello. In that case, it's showing the scope of what you can handle. And as a reader or an employer or a customer, I'm reading and going, this person has great decision-making skills. This person can think on their feet. They're organized. They probably have great customer service. They can deal with multitask at the same time. So I see what you can do, and you notice I quantified a lot.
Exactly.
I quantified that. Versus answering the phone, I'm picturing you answered it once a year, and you were a brat about it when you talked on the phone. So, you know, those are the kinds of stories that the reader will tell themselves. So you want to help them see you being able to solve their problem and see you doing those things.
Okay. What about length of resume? I hear this question a lot. Should it be 1 page, 2 pages? Any thoughts about that?
There's debate amongst career coaches about that. Basically, we're getting away from saying you have to have a 1-page resume. And of course, if the employer says, give me a 1-page resume, then you want to do what the employer says. But without that, 2-page resumes tend to be very acceptable nowadays. People don't balk at that, especially if you've been in an industry for a while, or a career, or a company. You don't want to be having to make the decision of what's you're going to cut because you're trying to stay to this arbitrary 1-page thing. Now, I've even been talking with career coaches out there, and they're finding that 3 pages and 4 pages are even what is becoming acceptable. I tend to find that that tends to be more for those who are in high-level executive positions. The rest of us tend to be 2 pages.